Be willing to do anything. Thank you. Great work.
Okay. We're about ready to begin. Good evening, everybody. Today is April the 2nd, 2019. This is a special meeting of the Board of Education. It's our first budget hearing. But even though this is a different kind of meeting, we always like to begin with a Pledge of Allegiance, and I usually have a tough time. Recently, I've had a tough time finding a young person to do the pledge, but it looks like we got a lot of young people here today. Any volunteers? Oh, yeah, I see a young man raising his hand. I like that. He's raised his hand right away. Let's give this young man a round of applause. Come on up, young man. You go right to that microphone over there. Tell us your name and where you go to school and why you're here today. I'm curious as to why you're here.
My name is Jeffrey Rogers. I go to James Monroe High School, and I'm here to just address some things that, students, we don't get heard a lot, and I have a lot of, opinions to, just talk about what goes on.
All right, let's give him another round of applause. That sounds good. So what I'm going to ask you to do is lead us in the pledge, and then I probably have your name on a speaker's list here. You're the first. Oh, so that'll work out perfect, Mr. Rogers. So why don't you go ahead, lead us in the pledge, and then you can have your 3 minutes.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, Mr. Rogers, before you begin, there's a couple rules that I explained to everybody, and these will apply to you, but I know you'll have no problem complying with the rules. There's some of us older folks that don't pay attention to the rules. And the rules are very simple. Everybody gets 3 minutes, and that 3 minutes, you'll know when that 3 minutes is up when our clerk, a little buzzer there goes off, and that buzzer won't stop ringing until you stop speaking. There is a reason behind that. We want to make sure that everybody has a chance to be heard. A lot of people don't, particularly us adults, Mr. Rogers, we don't like to stop talking, and we don't pay attention to the rules that we insist our young people pay attention to, but I know you will do that. And I know that because you're in the room, Vice President Elliott said something like this last week, because you're in the room, a lot of our adults want to serve as good role models. And so they, too, are going to comply with the 3-minute rule. Again, it's not because you're doing anything to offend us, but what you're doing is when you go beyond that 3 minutes, you're offending the rights of others to speak. So, Mr. Rogers, you go ahead and set the example and speak about what you want to speak about.
Well, one thing I really want to speak about is, what really goes on in the schools and, how the students, we're not really heard as much, So one thing I really want to get top on, we have almost $1 billion budget. If you add $75 more million on there, that's almost $1 billion budget. So we're not really seeing, you guys have Chromebooks and we're seeing all these new buildings going on, but we're not seeing, much programs. The administrators and principals who are making, just about 6 digits. We're not really seeing enough support inside the schools. Maybe we can create something like a BOCES plan, like a BOCES program where, everybody doesn't want to be forced inside colleges. We need more carpenters, roofers, auto mechanics, plumbers, electricians, and, so much more. So that's why I'm really here to talk about the budget, because it's a lot of, I see in the news and whatever, the city gives you guys $16 million. And again, thank you so much for the new schools. I appreciate it. But us students, we're not, being heard to what really goes on. If you look at these other schools, Greece and whatnot, their proms are so beautiful. I'm seeing some of my senior friends, they're struggling, to have enough funding for, prom, and why we can't do it here, this and that. I mean, we know it's expensive for prom, but why do we have to make all these fundraisers and everything with almost $1 billion budget? I mean, it's ridiculous where all this money is going, and us students is not seeing it at all.
Thank you. Thank you. Well done. Well done. Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers, do you have any idea what you want to do when you graduate?
I want to go to college for journalism and political science.
All right, now let's give him another round of applause. Well done. He is well on his way. Stephen Simmons. Stephen Simmons. All right, now another student.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
So I'm here to speak on the budget and how it relates to my school specifically. But briefly, I would like to talk on our our district's vision, which is every child by face and name, every classroom, every school, to and through graduation. It's a very powerful vision, and it means to me that every person that we have met throughout our lives in school and that we will come to meet outside of school and in programs like Upward Bound or Gear Up, that you guys are working hard to be able to provide for them, and we want to see them through graduation and give them enough things so that they can do whatever it is that they want to become, because here in the inner city, we're seen as less than, and we're working to change that. Like I said, my name is Stephen Simmons. I attend Rochester Early College High School. The proposed budget would cut our classrooms that we use at the MCC campus, sending students like me back to an overcrowded building that has never felt like our school. And it contains students as young as 5 years old, and some of the 13-year-olds who are 8th graders at Little Wilson act like they're 5 years old. Early College is one of a few high schools within good standing in New York State with a graduation rate of 87%. This demonstrates the success our school has achieved. Despite this success, the budget would cut the presence on a college campus that we have, and it would negatively impact not only our achievement, but our culture and our opportunities, as well as the future. Students selected this school based on the promise and an opportunity to be able to go to a place like a college campus at MCC. And by cutting this funding, the proposed budget would break the district's promise to every child who hoped to take up this opportunity. New York State has recently approved $9 million in its budget to create 15 new early college schools. Why would our district move away from a model that is working while New York State and other school districts are embracing it? When considering the budget proposal, We implore you to look beyond the dollars and cents and consider our names and faces at early college, and have the courage to keep your promise and protect this early college, City of Residence MCC. Because students like me, my friend Donella, Jada, a couple other students, we're all 10th graders who skipped a grade to be able to go and take classes. And we still have 2 years of high school left, and it will allow us to take our associate's degree. And there are a lot of kids that I've met who are freshmen this year who have the same potential to do the great things. And I would hate for them to miss out on such a great opportunity. Thank you for allowing me my time.
Mr. Simmons, I hope I'm not embarrassing you. What do you want to do when you graduate from high school?
As soon as I graduate from high school, I'm going to go to Cornell, Ivy League school.
All right now.
Business, minor in creative writing, so I can become a publisher.
All right. Whew.
Mr.
Me
President,
chills.
before you call your next speaker, can we do a mic check on,
Yeah.
because I'm getting absolutely nothing.
Someone from communications here to help us with the mic? Because it is kind of low. Can someone check that mic? Okay. But the problem is that people who are here are having a difficult time hearing. I saw Carlos just a second ago get up when that comment was made.
Testing, testing.
Maybe he didn't, yeah.
Can you put it a little louder?
I think what would also help too is if
Testing.
our speakers made sure they speak directly into the mic.
Yeah.
Right?
In any case, if you're tall, try to adjust the mic for your height. Speak towards the mic, not below it.
No need to apologize. Yeah. Tell me when you're ready. Oh, okay. Anfa Balu, help me out with the pronunciation. Boulay? Thank you. I apologize for the mispronunciation. That's good? Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Anne Blair. I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous right now. All right. So I've heard you guys been thinking about sending us back to Genesee Street, which I think it isn't a good idea at all. I feel like this will mess us up as students. Being on a college campus helps us learn responsibility and how to balance high school and college, which I feel like as early college students, being on MCC has helped teach me a lot and learn to be independent. And speaking for other students as well, just being on that campus and balancing your college classes and your high school classes teaches you so much responsibility and learn to be around a lot of different cultures around the college campus. If we get sent back to Genesee Street, how are the scholars who have gaps in their schedules going to work that out? So basically, being an early college student, by the end of your sophomore year, you end up earning all of your high school credits, and you just during your junior year, you end up having a lot of elective classes. So that's when you are able to take college classes and basically classes that relate to your major or whatever you want to go for college, or even if you're undecided, you could take classes such as COS, which helps you once you get to college, it teaches you how to talk to your professors and help you decide a major and all, But my point being is, I feel like it's a bad idea to separate us again because, like I said, having like earning all your credits as a sophomore year, what are you gonna do as a junior? Like, are you just gonna be on a small campus, which is like a bunch of students in this like tight area? So it's like, what are you gonna do between your free periods? Like, you're not gonna be able to like go back and forth between two campuses and take the bus, which is way easier when you're downtown because there's a shuttle bus. So it's like, if you wanted to be in a bigger campus, it's easier for you to go to Brighton and, you know, have that big campus experience. But being on Genesee campus is harder for you like to travel back and forth, and like you're just gonna have a bunch of space gap between your classes. And also, I feel like there's a lot of money just floating around in the district, so where's all that money going towards?
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Boulay, Ms. Boulay, I know you hear me. No, you didn't. Maybe you didn't. Come back here for a second. I've asked everybody, and we got at least one more student. What's life look like for you after you graduate from high school? What are you going to do?
I'm planning on attending Howard University.
All right,
and,
all right.
And I'm planning on majoring in the medical field, becoming a psychologist, and a minor in criminal justice.
Excellent, excellent. Let's give her a round of applause. And I want to say to all folks, but particularly the young folks, this procedure may seem a bit odd because we don't respond to the comments. That's just how our rules require. This is intended to just listen to the citizens. We're not supposed to be responding back because sometimes that leads to the focus turning to ourselves. The focus is supposed to be on the citizens today. And so there are people who can answer your questions, particularly young people. The adults in your schools can tell you how to access those, or your mom or your dad, your aunt, your uncle can tell you how to access us for these kinds of conversations. But tonight, it's just a night for us to listen to the citizens. So with that being said, Teresa Spivey. Teresa Spivey? Nope, not here? All right, how about Richard Adams? Oh, is that Teresa? Right. Nope. Oh, I'm sorry. I know Ricardo. I don't know a Richard Adams, but Ricardo, if that's supposed to be you, then come on up, Ricardo. I'm sorry, Ricardo. My sheet says Richard. So.
All right, good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. It seems like you've been told you have to make a choice between finally getting it right with special education and keeping the momentum going to improve school climate. That's not really acceptable. We got proof the suspension can be reduced. We've got proof that we can do better. You've seen the data. Some schools ain't doing as well. That's because we have not been supporting the restorative program the way we need to restore it. They need to be funded more staff members. It works. We have to get into a mindset of doing what works at all costs. We have to do something different. I don't know if maybe in the next superintendent's day, we have to all get on the bus, all of us, the teachers and everybody, and go to Albany. For real. Instead of just going there and sitting around having a meeting, let's all go to Albany and get the other $91 million that they owe us from the foundation fund. For real. By the way, they've given an extra, like almost $6 million on the foundation fund money that's not included in the budget. So I would like you definitely to consider putting that towards the restorative and towards special education. I've personally seen, I'm not theorized up here. I'm not sitting around reading no papers or books. I've been in the school building. I've seen what works. I've seen the caseworker come handle a situation that me, the principal, and nobody couldn't, even the mama couldn't handle the situation. The case person came in there and recognized that it was she said it was some kind of sensory issue. Whatever it was, she was more qualified than me. And that little girl changed and went to the class, and it was a brand new day. But she was the only one had that skill. It worked. We have to keep those things in place. We cannot cut back on the things that's working. And as far as restorative is concerned, I just got to say, when we talk about racism and equity, that's working with the restorative thing. That's where it's working. That's about the only place it is working. I don't have the answers, but y'all got to work together and get them. And please, and maybe go to schools and ask the people that are really there on seeing this stuff firsthand. Ask the professionals, and that's where they at. They're in the buildings. I thank you.
Thank you.
For your time. Man.
Thank you. Mary Callahan. Mary Callahan. Okay, take your time. It's all right.
Hi. My son attends School 58. I'm a member of the Citizen Action Education Committee and also a teacher in Greece. Restorative practices are working, I'll echo that. This is clear in the recent Breaking the School to Prison Pipeline School Climate Report, which showed a 40% decrease in school suspensions over the course of 5 years. There were also gains in achievement. This is in addition to the fact that developing positive school-community relationships, proactive conflict resolution, and restorative justice just makes logical sense. In order for these programs to work, we need to continue the ROC restorative programs, which included 10 coaches across the district, and help zone staffed by the Ganzi Institute, the Center for Youth, and PERI, those who have expertise in this arena. It also provided for teacher and student training in RP. We know this was funded by a $3 million grant and that the grant period is over after this year. It has been stated many times that the board does not intend to cut funding for RP, but is it prepared to lose this funding? As a teacher, I have seen this kind of thing happen over and over again. You cannot let this become another grant program that just quietly goes away. I also know how important these investments are. What will happen to all those schools where these initiatives are working? We need to make sure money continues to be directed not only to these schools, but these programs need to be replicated in all the schools across the district. The district needs to earn the trust of its families. This is no secret. RP is a major factor in accomplishing this. It also efficiently and effectively supports state initiatives for social emotional learning standards and a developing culturally responsive education framework the state is working on. The district has received an additional $5.9 million in foundation aid from New York State over the amount that was assumed in next year's draft budget after it was already balanced. Some of this money should go toward the RP funding lost as the grant expires. Some more of the money should go to 12 additional special education positions, teachers and admin alike. This is another area of our CSD that has come up over and over again as needing staffing and streamlined organization and communication. Lastly, some of that money should go towards restoring library, music, and art programs. Libraries are being staffed at half-time in next year's budget, and there are additional reductions for art, music, and gym that are the equivalent of 29 full-time positions. This is unacceptable. RP, special education, library, music, art, these are essentials, not optionals. I realize you don't have an easy job, but this is possible. Prioritize what is best for your students and families. Until you do that, until you start breaking paradigms and entrenched ineffective systems and structures and replacing them with these effective ones, you will continue to fail our students. Please invest wisely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Pia Moeller. Pia Moeller.
My name is Pia Müller, and I'm a parent in the district. I have a second grader at School 53. I'm a proud member of Citizen Action and the Education Committee, where we do work to help parents connect with the district and also push for the things that we know from the research and from talking to parents and kids, the things we know work. I'm here to talk about the fact that there is money coming in that wasn't planned for. The draft budget was balanced. There's $5.9 million that, as far as I understand, can be used for at your discretion, right? It's not tied to any particular budget line. So I want to advocate for the district to restore the funding in art, music, libraries, and physical education. As Mary just said before me, these are not optional areas. They're very, very essential. My kid currently has music once a week, and art and library rotates. So he has either art or library, right? To me, that's already very, very little. That cannot be cut. That's too important. Every child needs something to fall in love with at school, right? And for a lot of kids, that's just not reading, writing, and math. It's not. It's those creative areas, those recreative classes, access to books. You cannot cut that without cutting or undermining the love of learning that a lot of kids have. It's just too important. I think that the creative classes and the recreative classes are places where kids express themselves. It's where they explore their emotions. They found an outlet for their talents and for their energy, and it really helps kids thrive in schools. It's very needed. Secondly, school climate. As Ricardo and Mary already said, these restorative practices have proven their efficacy. We know that they work. 40% drop in suspension, that's huge. And we've only just started. You can't drop the ball on this one. This is too important. It's not a fad. We know that it works. You talk to the kids. If you saw the recent report and were at the press conference at School 17 and heard those kids speak about how restorative practices work for them, that's the kind of stuff that we need to learn from. That's what we need to bring district-wide into every single school because it really worked for those kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Clay Harris. Clay Harris.
Good evening, Board. Good evening, Superintendent. Good evening, Dr. Aquino. I'm sure you guys haven't seen me before, and probably wondering why I'm here again, right? Well, I said I wouldn't come back again last month, if you remember, and I didn't. It's a new month. But for the same thing. And we got to do something about it. We got to get OASIS refunded to the level it was back in the year 2013 and 14. And as you well know, it's been systematically cut. A lot of the board members that are here are new. Some was back from the old administration, and I don't mean from Barbara Dean administration, the other administration. And they gave the board some not so accurate information that led you guys to cut it. So we have been advocating, and we have been asking, we have been pleading, we have been cajoling everybody to refund OASIS because we need to educate the young people who are being lost by the community. Because it's not the district. It's just not your fault. I don't subscribe to that, and I've shared that with you guys on a number of occasions. It's a community issue and a community problem. I'm just asking you from the bottom of my heart that you guys refund OASIS, because that age group, if we don't catch them, we're going to still be in the same situation we've been in for the last 30 to 40 years. They're going to drop out. They're out hanging out on the streets. They're committing crimes. They're not making good, sound, rational, reasonable decisions. They're having children. They're still babies. They don't know how to take care of the children. And we have a vicious cycle. We got to capture that age. We got to get them educated. We have to get them trained in terms of job ready, vocation, and hopefully some of them may even want to go to a higher education. But we have to capture that age. That has been the problem because of the dropouts that we've had for the last 20 to 30 years. That age group is key, because if we don't catch them, we're going to keep having a revolving door, even in the justice system. I know you know what I'm talking about. Facts don't lie, statistics don't lie, and data don't lie. There is 1,000 to 1,500 of them young people that are dropping out of school every year. So you put that age together from 16 to 21, that's 5,000 to 7,000 young people that are not being educated, and then thus they're not educating their children, then their children's children, and their children, because we're at 3 generations right now. I'm telling you, refund OASIS. They got great results, great statistics with a very difficult group. That's why they dropped out of the district in the first place. Let's come together as a community and let's get it refunded. I don't want to have to come back again.
Oh, you know you're going to come back anyway. Again,
I'm going to have some more folk with me, and then we're going to have to get a little bit more aggressive, and I don't want to do that, and I'm serious. Seriously. Let's do this. Let's come together as a community. That's all I got to say. And I'll see most of y'all tomorrow, by the way.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amen Scanlon. He'll be followed by Karen Tucker.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Eamon Scanlon from the Children's Agenda. This year, we're doing our 2nd annual review of the City School District budget. This is still a learning process, but I'd like to provide some of my insights tonight and offer up to the board a chance for a fuller explanation when the report is finished next week. But for now, in the hearing, it's nice to see this kind of turnout. We don't usually see this, but obviously, unfortunately, this is being driven by the huge cuts you're making. And really the fact that the budget as a whole has not followed a consistent philosophy. There was a lot of adding, and now we're going to austerity. So stabilization at a high level is really something the Children's Agenda would like to see moving forward, so we don't have these huge swings in staffing. But at the same time, we do understand that with a shrinking enrollment, there will have to be cuts to the teaching staff at some point, and so there is some merit to that, but it needs to be done responsibly. I want to talk to a few key issues of concern within the budget that were already mentioned, particularly school climate. The Children's Agenda, in partnership with Citizen Action, with AQE and other organizations like the Community Task Force, did a report. Some of you attended that press conference. And at a follow-up board meeting, there was a lot of celebration around the great work that's happened to reduce suspensions in the city school district. And I'm sure you all know that that wouldn't be possible without restorative practices. And if the 10 positions in the student support budget, and I'm going to be very specific, it's teachers on assignment in the student support services budget, have been zeroed out. Those are the rock restorative coaches. There are 0 budgeted for next year. That essentially guts restorative practices being scaled up in any other schools. As was mentioned before, there is a $5.9 million increase in foundation aid over the assumptions you have. You also have a balanced budget. So really the discussion is, what will you do with that $5.9 million? What are you seeking to restore within the budget? So I would make an extreme pitch. For those coaches, that's roughly $1 million out of the 5.9. There's still money left over for other priorities. I think that's just an essential item. And on top of that, those are the coaches. One very concerning cutback is in the professional technical services that funds your contracts with outside agencies. A lot of the help zones are funded through those contracts. And I know that there's going to be a cut of $250,000 to that budget for help zones, which would be 5 help zones being eliminated over what currently exists. That is a key component that needs to be restored. It's not enough to move to restorative practices if you don't have the alternatives to suspensions in place. So that's a key building support we'd like to see restored. And I'd like to echo the points about special education. It would cost roughly $1 million or $1.1 million, I'm guesstimating here, to add 12 positions administratively. This is because of the transition of eliminating the case position, the 40 cases, and centralizing services. Now, to do that effectively, given that, I'm sorry, see, I have too much to say, but given that the services are being centralized and this is another reorganization, if you don't have proper staffing for that transition, it might fail like it did under Barbara Dean Williams, trying to put some of the services in buildings. So if you're going to totally reorganize the department, it's really key to have the supports in place for that transition. And lastly, libraries, music, all those things make schools a wonderful place. So
thank you. Karen Tucker will be followed by Carrie Zito.
Good evening, Superintendent Loengard, Commissioners, and Dr. Aquino. My name is Karen Tucker. I have been a building-based registrar for 6 of my 26 years in the district. Next year's proposed budget includes a decrease in the district's registrar allocations. For this current school year, there are 19 FTEs. However, next year that number significantly decreases to 11.23. These reductions will directly impact students and families because it is very likely that schedules will not be ready in time for school to start. These newly proposed allocations would mean that a full-time registrar who currently has 5 K-6 buildings would now be responsible for 10 K-6 buildings. In addition, we are being trained to use a brand new student management system. Please understand that our workload does not decrease as we are given more schools to work with. More schools, plus having to master the new student management system, almost certainly means that buildings will not function as they need to. Will not function as well as they need to. Perhaps this change was made without a proper understanding of registrar responsibilities. Time does not permit me to read the varied tasks that we are called upon to perform, but I urge you to look at my handout. We are recommending that the allocations should remain the same as they are this school year. Our current workload is appropriate and manageable. In a recent edition of Leadership Link, it said, quote, "The work of the registrars and the building of the master schedule is a critical component of a successful implementation as student schedules drive many other components of the system, for example, grades, attendance, etc. While the new system provides some exciting new enhancements, building a master schedule in a new system is an arduous endeavor. Any and all support provided is greatly appreciated for this important work," end quote. We hope you feel the same way and the district decides to be proactive now rather than reactive in September. Thank you for your time and consideration, and thank you to our registrars and our supporters who are here. Will you please stand up and be recognized? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tucker. Carrie Zito will be followed by Lisa Silverstein. Lisa Silverstein. Ms. Zito.
Hi, good evening, board members, Superintendent Loengard. I stand before you this evening along with my colleagues, representing Dr. Louis A. Cerulli, school number 34, staff, families, and students. The last time we stood before you was in February of 2016, having received acknowledgement from the board that we were no longer a school in priority, but a focus school. Since that time, School 34 has made tremendous gains and experienced great success due to our expanded learning time program. The hour of extra instruction daily has led to some great accomplishments. We all know tonight's meeting focuses around the budget. Words like budget deficit, closing the gap, elimination of programs, etc. This is not the case when speaking about school number 34, expanded learning program. Our program is closing the gap with our students' learning. To show you the value of this program, I'd like to share some data with you this evening. Since 2015, our school New York State test scores have increased every year in both ELA and math, with this year increase being at a 4.25% increase. Our fall to winter NWA scores this year has school 34 ranked second, tied with school number 23, as a school among elementary schools showing most growth gained. Board members, as of this year, January, school number 34 stands before you as a school in good standing. These accomplishments are proof. These accomplishments are proof that we are running a successful expanded learning program at School 34. This program funding provides a rigorous analysis of data that drives our instruction and provides both enrichment and intervention for every child, grade K through 6. Due to our expanding learning program, every child, grade K through 6, has an opportunity to explore the arts. Let's think about that. A choice of students' interests in drumming, visual arts, dance. We are also able to provide a student-led production and a morning show that is only programmed in the elementary schools that is student-led. Due to the Expanded Learning Program, our Future Cities program recently received first place, second year in a row for being a school that was recognized both regionally for the accomplishments of the program. Due to our expanded learning funding, we have been able to partner with the Center for Youth. This partnership has led to a decrease in suspensions and referrals every year since it began. Let's be honest, if this was a program that wasn't working, we could not confidently stand before you and ask that you would reinstate our expanded learning time funding. While we are proud of these accomplishments, there's still more work to be done. Dropping our expanded learning funding would be a disservice to our families and students. Please reinstate our expanded learning time funding.
Thank you, Ms. Zito. Lisa Silverstein will be followed by Candace Rubin.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Lisa Silverstein, and I'm a Rochester City School District home hospital teacher. We work with some of the most vulnerable students in the district. Without us, if a student missed an average of 6 weeks of school, they would have no chance of passing that year or graduating on time. Issue number 1. This year, our students are being placed in situations where they are being set up to fail. Maybe in order to keep home instruction numbers down. Multiple students who were expecting home instruction are being given transportation to Hart Street to meet in the Young Mother's Library, which is in itself not a room conducive to learning. If they don't show up, they're dropped and placed in long-term absence homerooms. I currently have a student who was shot by a stray bullet when she was 13. The bullet is still in her body, and she routinely suffers pain, which made her attendance at her home school sporadic enough that she was not finding success. She was given medical transportation to meet me for 2 hours of home instruction at Hart Street. When I called her mother, she told me that it was her desire for her daughter to receive home instruction at home, as the extra time on the bus was painful for her daughter. I said I would speak to my assignment coordinator the next day. When she brought the issue to one of her supervisors, she was told, no, it was not fiscally responsible for me to see the student in her home. This argument makes absolutely no sense. If I'm being assigned to see this student for the rest of the school year, it would most certainly be cheaper to eliminate the cost of medical transportation to and from Hart Street. Is someone trying to inflate our costs now so they can look good by cutting them later? Issue number 2, our unit has been reduced over the years from over 60 teachers when I started to our current number of less than 30. In June, we had 3 teachers retire, and the district rescinded the offers we had extended to 3 qualified teachers and hired 3 substitutes to start on day 1 of the school year. While it might be cheaper to hire substitutes in place of salaried teachers, I thought there was a state law preventing these kinds of things from happening, and we have a pending grievance on this. While subs might be cheaper, they do not have to be certified or have any teaching experience. In the budget for next year, 8 home hospital teachers are slated to lose their jobs. After the 10% reduction last year, this is another 25% reduction to our unit. We sense a correlation between the shenanigans that are going on in our program this year and the catastrophic results these cuts will have on our students in the future. State law says when students cannot attend school, the minimum they should receive is 2 hours of instruction per day. So Rochester City School District provides the minimum of 2 hours. If we don't have enough teachers, students awaiting home instruction go on a waiting list, which is certainly going to make us out of compliance, and especially for our special ed students. No, when this happens, no one wins. So please reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you. Candace Rubin will be followed by Gail Keating.
Some of this is a repeat of what Lisa said. I'm Candace Rubin, the chair of the home hospital teachers, and the proposed cuts in our program, cutting a third of the program, was alarming to me, but it wasn't surprising. And I think teachers have been fearful of retaliation and did not want to speak up about many irregularities this year. We have very few suspended students. I think they're suspended only when they present a real danger to the safety of other students in the building. Again, it's a rare disposition. However, the shocking development is the number of students who come to us with medical notes which are disregarded. They're told sometimes to return to their school. This just happened last week. A student from Schools 29. And they're with us because staying at home is the option which will allow them to succeed because they physically are unable to function in a school building. They're so sick or they have a variety of medical problems. And this attempt to purge was obvious in the summer of 2018 when 12 medical students were arbitrarily dropped from our summer school list with no explanation. And there were at least 2 of those students who were on track to graduate that summer if they'd had instruction. I don't know what the disposition of the students are. But that was accelerated, this tendency was accelerated with looser criteria for entrance into a long-term absence homeroom, essentially dropping students. Recommendations for placement, for CSE placements with our program being ignored. Recommendations that are on the IEP, we do have the majority of our students are special ed students. Incoming student start dates being ignored. Medically fragile students, including one with advanced MS, being encouraged to go back to Mary Carriola, and that was a placement that he left because he was getting sick. He was extremely fragile. And home instruction is something that should allow them to finish, to be educated, or to graduate. And I've graduated quite a few students. There's also random reassignment of students to different teachers, disrupting the relationships that they had with a previous teacher. I'm assuming that's being done to discourage attendance. And instead of a student scheduled, if a student is, okay, there was one instance of a student who was scheduled to, at the end of the year, have 17.5 credits, and he was advised to drop out and enroll in a GED program. And students who postpartum are being told that they'll be welcome back at school in 6 weeks. They're not even given, there have been a few cases of phone calls going out, they don't even have home instruction, phone calls denying them home instruction. And there are more than one special ed student being placed in a long-term absence homeroom because it was a waste of money. I'll conclude by saying I believe there are irregularities are a legal and moral affront to the students whose connection to the education system is most tenuous. As a remedy, I would respectfully request the restoration of a minimum of half the positions lost in tandem with independent monitoring of the practices by which students are placed on and taken off home instruction. Thank you.
Thank you. Gail Keating will be followed by Jermaine Fleming.
Hi. Gail Keating from Home Hospital. At one point, our unit had about 60 teachers and 40 subs, and now we're down to 29. And the budget states we'll cut another 8. We're losing our only science teacher, 2 bilingual teachers, and that's all we've got. We're a highly specialized unit. We're out in the community, as you know. One of our jobs in our unit is we want to see a healthy RCSD by basically doing 2 things. One, our unit helps to provide legal compliance, and I'll explain that in a bit. And the second, we work on creating more taxpayers by getting kids to graduate who would not have otherwise graduated. And we do have a lot of success stories that are very unsung. One, we help to provide legal compliance with such sensitive situations physically, emotionally, and legally. Physically, by providing the mandated education to students who cannot be in school due to health issues, from a child, for example, with cancer to a child with a broken leg. So from long-term to more temporary. Emotionally, we have other students that usually involve severe anxiety, bullying victims, severe psychological issues that must be addressed outside the school setting. Also legally, there's a wide gamut of different issues in the community. We not only provide the state-mandated service, but we gain a more clear understanding of very intricate issues that are out there, and we help the district to provide more insight, sometimes documentation. Also, we help the bullying victims to get and guide students who have been a threat to the general student population. And there are also sensitive cases where students need to be temporarily removed until the situation's resolved. Needless to say, this prevents possible injury to students or self-harm, all of which we've seen. By the way, all students in schools deserve a safe school environment, and principals, I would hope, need the freedom of good judgment to ascertain which students or when a student should be removed. Secondly and lastly, our unit helps to create taxpayers by getting those kids to graduate who would not have otherwise graduated. I know one of my success stories, I had a child who was a big, giant kid, and he was out of school, one of our many, due to anxiety and violent outbursts. Very, very common for us. He was big, but a sweet baby. And he scared the heck out of everybody. They kept trying to put him in, he kept coming out, in and out, very, very typical. And he came back finally, and he graduated and now is in college. This is very common. I'm blessed to have a friendship, too, with that family. So we provide outreach and mandated educational services and much more. I know time's limited. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Jermaine Fleming will be followed by Stefan McDonald.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Jermaine Fleming, and I have the pleasure of working at Rochester Early College International High School. Rochester Early College International High School is run by its commitment to scholars and their families, and also our partnerships within the community. With our graduation rate at 87%, and our scholars graduating high school with college credits from MCC, this commitment to our scholars and family has paid off. Our partnership with MCC is important because it is giving hope to scholars who would have never thought about going to college. This translates into financial gains for families because they're saving money by them taking college credits while they're at early college. Scholars can potentially shave off 2 semesters in their college years while in high school because they are taking college credits while they're on the campus of MCC. Scholars and their families, past and present, have worked extremely hard to make our mark on the MCC campus. This partnership is very important to them. Taking this opportunity away would only crush the scholars who are currently working hard to get to MCC in their next few years. The draft budget suggests that the district will save $900,000 if this opportunity is taken away. Rochester Early College graduation continues to rise each year, and we are currently at 87%. I believe that $900,000 is well spent. The mission of the Rochester City School District is to provide a quality education that ensures our students graduate with the skills to be successful in a democratic society and the global economy. Not only are the students of Rochester Early College graduating with the skills not only are they graduating with the skills that they are learning on the college campus, but they are also graduating with the college credits that match up with those skills. I hope our scholars are not robbed of this wonderful opportunity just to save a quick buck. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fleming. Stefan McDonald. He will be followed by Kayla Rizzo.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephen McDonald. I am a high school counselor at the Rochester Early College High School. As Mr. Fleming so eloquently put it, the Rochester Early College is currently 1 out of 4 high schools in the RCSD that's currently in good standing. The Rochester Early College has an 87% graduation rate, which is tied for 3rd in the district, and the Rochester Early College has had a 17% increase in graduation over the last 2 years. I asked that the board not cut programs at the Rochester Early College High School. 11th and 12th graders should remain at the MCC downtown campus. I have seen tremendous growth and maturity from our students by affording them the opportunity to take high school and college classes on the MCC downtown and Brighton campus. The quality of our scholars' academic instruction is invaluable. Their life outcomes are priceless and should not be shortchanged to save a few $1,000s. Our students have had to fight to save programs at their school for the last 2 years. Our children have experienced enough trauma. Having to experience loss repeatedly adds to the traumatic experiences our scholars have to face. I recently heard a board member talk about having a moral compass. I ask that the board use their moral compass. Make your decision as if someone is watching you, and know that if your intention is in the right place, you will receive a good outcome and vice versa. By doing something with ill intent, you only wrong yourself, and no good deed goes unrewarded. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. And finally, Kayla Rizzo. Kayla Rizzo. Kayla Rizzo, not here. Going once, going twice. Ms. Rizzo is not here. That ends our list of speakers for tonight. I want to inform the community that your comments were heard and will go into the board's deliberations over the next month or so. Additionally, we're having another board budget hearing on April the 11th, 2019 at 5:30, same place, same location. I want to thank everybody for turning out tonight. This was actually a very good turnout with lots of good comments. And finally, on behalf of the board, I want to thank Kalia Wade for stepping in and doing what it's got to be one of the more difficult jobs in this district. Can we give Kalia a round of applause? Thank you, Kalia. I just need a motion to adjourn and we'll be all set. It's been moved by Commissioner Hallmark, seconded by Vice President Elliott. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Good night, everybody. Have a nice night. Hey.